I found myself picking out suits and testing cake samples for what should have been the happiest day of my life. After 3 years with Amanda, I was ready to make it official. She was everything I had ever wanted, and my family loved her too, especially my younger brother Jason. We had grown up inseparable, but lately something felt off between us. The way he looked at her, the way she avoided my eyes when we were all together. I never imagined they could betray me so completely. I never thought the two people I trusted most would destroy everything I believed in. Before I share the most painful experience of my life, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to hear more stories about family betrayal that will make your blood boil. My name is Gray, a 32-year-old software engineer living in Chicago. I had built a pretty good life for myself before everything fell apart. I owned a comfortable house in the suburbs, had a career that was really taking off, and felt secure about my future. I come from what I always thought was a close family. My parents were supportive, and my brother Jason, 4 years younger than me, used to be my best friend growing up. Jason and I shared everything as kids. I taught him how to ride a bike, defended him from neighborhood bullies, and helped him with his homework. I remember staying up late helping him prepare for his science fair in 8th grade. He won first place, and the look of pride on his face meant everything to me. We drifted somewhat as adults, but I always made time for him. Looking back, there were signs I missed. Jason lived in my shadow growing up. He was always Gray's little brother, never just Jason. I never realized how much that affected him until it was too late. I met Amanda at my previous company 3 years ago. She worked in the marketing department, and I was immediately drawn to her. Amanda was beautiful with her auburn hair and green eyes, but it was her intelligence and ambition that really attracted me. She was the type of person who lit up any room she entered. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant where we talked until the staff started cleaning up around us. I knew that night that she was special. Our relationship progressed naturally. We took a memorable trip to Portland for our 6-month anniversary, where we hiked through lush forests and explored the city. For our 1-year anniversary, I surprised her with a weekend at Lake Michigan. We sat on the shore watching the sunset, and I remember thinking I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this woman. After 2 years together, I proposed at our favorite restaurant. I was so nervous that I nearly dropped the ring. When she said yes, the entire restaurant applauded. We began planning our wedding immediately, selecting a beautiful vineyard in Napa Valley. We spent hours creating guest lists and choosing flowers, both excited about beginning our lives together. Introducing Amanda to my family was important to me. I still remember our first dinner together. My mom made her famous pot roast, and my dad broke out the expensive wine he had been saving. Jason was there too, and I noticed how he looked at Amanda with admiration. I felt proud that my brother approved of my choice. My parents welcomed her with open arms, telling embarrassing stories from my childhood that made Amanda laugh until tears streamed down her face. As time passed, Amanda became part of our family. She joined us for Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations, and even our annual family camping trip. She fit in perfectly, and I was grateful that the woman I loved got along so well with the family I cherished. 6 months before our wedding date in October, things were falling into place. We had booked our venue, selected our caterer, and sent out save-the-date cards. I asked Jason to be my best man, and he accepted with what seemed like genuine happiness. I trusted Amanda and Jason completely. I never questioned their loyalty or their love. Planning a wedding created some stress, of course. Amanda and I had occasional disagreements about details, but we always resolved them quickly. She wanted a larger wedding than I did, but we compromised on a moderate-sized celebration with our closest friends and family. Everything seemed perfect until one rainy afternoon in April, when my entire world came crashing down. I first noticed something was wrong when Amanda started acting differently about 2 months before our planned wedding. Her mood would shift suddenly, and she became irritable over small things. When I asked if everything was okay, she would snap at me and then apologize, blaming wedding stress. She began canceling appointments with our wedding planner and skipped her final dress fitting, claiming she was too busy with work. I also noticed she was protective of her phone, turning it face down when I entered the room and taking calls in another room. At first I dismissed these behaviors, telling myself I was being paranoid. Amanda was under a lot of pressure at work, and planning a wedding on top of that would make anyone act differently. What struck me as odd was that Jason had also become distant. He missed 2 family dinners in a row, something he never did. When I called to check on him, his answers were short, and he seemed eager to end our conversations. He declined to go on our traditional brothers' golf outing, claiming he had too much work. Jason worked as a financial analyst, and while his job could be demanding, he had never been too busy for our monthly tradition before. I tried to talk to Amanda about my concerns one evening. I suggested we take a weekend off from wedding planning to relax. She became defensive, accusing me of not understanding how much pressure she was under. When I mentioned that Jason had also been acting strangely, she changed the subject abruptly. That was the first moment I felt a knot of dread forming in my stomach. The first concrete evidence that something was wrong came 3 weeks before our wedding. Amanda was taking a shower, and her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I normally would never look at her messages, but something compelled me to glance at the screen. It was a text from someone saved simply as J that read, "We have to tell him. I cannot keep doing this." My heart started racing as I realized J could only be Jason. I put the phone down before Amanda returned, pretending I had seen nothing. Instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to watch and gather more information. The next day I told Amanda I had a lunch meeting, but instead parked across from her office. At noon she emerged and walked to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. When I looked through the window, I saw her sitting with Jason, their heads close together, in an intimate conversation. He took her hand across the table, and she did not pull away. The floor seemed to drop out from under me, as I realized my suspicions were not just paranoia. That evening I waited for Amanda to come home. I had rehearsed what I would say, but when she walked through the door, all my prepared words vanished. I simply asked, "How long have you been seeing my brother?" Her face drained of color and she collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Through her tears, she admitted that she and Jason had slept together after a party 3 months ago when I was on a business trip to Boston. What started as a drunken mistake had evolved into an affair. They had been meeting secretly ever since. I stood there unable to process what I was hearing. My fiancé and my brother. The 2 people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But the final blow came when Amanda revealed she was 3 months pregnant. A paternity test had confirmed it was Jason's child. My entire future, all my plans and dreams shattered in that moment. I felt physically ill, rushing to the bathroom to throw up. Without saying another word to Amanda, I grabbed my keys and drove straight to Jason's apartment across town. When he opened the door, I did not give him a chance to speak. I punched him hard in the face, my knuckles cracking against his jaw. Blood spurted from his nose as he stumbled backward. I had never been violent before, but in that moment I wanted to hurt him as badly as he had hurt me. Jason did not fight back. He sat on his couch holding a towel to his bleeding nose and confessed everything. He told me he had always been jealous of me, always living in my shadow, always being compared to me, and falling short. He said he had not planned to fall for Amanda, but when it happened, he could not stop himself. His confession only made me feel worse. Not only had he betrayed me, but he had harbored resentment toward me our entire lives. I left his apartment in a daze, driving aimlessly through the city for hours. When I finally returned home, Amanda had packed some of her things and left. There was a note saying she was staying with a friend, and that she was sorry, as if that word could repair the devastation they had caused. The next day, I called my parents and asked them to come over. I needed their support more than ever. When they arrived, I told them everything through tears I could not control. Their reaction was not what I expected. They were shocked, yes, but my mother's first words were, "You need to calm down and think this through rationally." My father nodded in agreement. They were not condemning Jason or Amanda. Instead, they seemed concerned about how this would affect the family as a whole. My mother reached for my hand and said something I will never forget. "He is your brother Gray. Blood is thicker than water. This is your niece or nephew we are talking about. You need to find a way to forgive them both." I pulled my hand away, unable to believe what I was hearing. They were asking me to forgive the unforgivable, to welcome back the 2 people who had conspired to destroy me. I felt betrayed all over again this time by my parents. I cannot believe my ears when Mom suggested I should forgive and accept the child as part of our family. That was the moment I knew I had to leave everything behind. The days following my discovery were the darkest of my life. I could barely function, hardly eating or sleeping. The betrayal consumed my every thought. I requested 2 weeks off work, explaining to my boss that there had been a family emergency. He was understanding, but I knew I could not hide from reality forever. My friend Eric came to stay with me after I called him in the middle of the night, barely coherent. He slept on my couch for a week, making sure I ate and helping me deal with the practical matters of canceling the wedding. Each cancellation was like reopening the wound. The venue, the caterers, the flowers, the honeymoon in Bali, dreams dissolving one phone call at a time. During those sleepless nights, I would replay every moment, with Amanda looking for signs I had missed. Every time Jason had offered to pick her up from work when I was busy. Every time they had laughed at jokes I did not understand. Had they been laughing at me all along? The life I had planned was gone. The family I thought we would start. The children we had talked about, having all of it disappeared in an instant. My phone rang constantly with calls from my parents. Each time the message was the same. We need to talk about this as a family. Your brother made a terrible mistake, but he is still your brother. I could not believe they were defending him. Their voicemails became increasingly urgent, insisting that I needed to meet with everyone to find a resolution. A resolution. As if this were a business dispute that could be settled with a handshake. After 2 weeks of avoiding their calls, I received a handwritten letter from Jason. He wrote that he was deeply sorry, that he had never meant to hurt me. Yet in the same letter he mentioned that he and Amanda were continuing their relationship and preparing for the baby. He hoped that with time, I could find it in my heart to be part of their child's life. I burned the letter in my kitchen sink. Amanda sent emails too, explaining how confused she had been, how she had not meant for any of this to happen. She claimed she had truly loved me, but had discovered stronger feelings for Jason. Each message was like a knife twisting in my gut. I blocked her email address and her number. As word spread through our extended family, people began taking sides. My cousin Mark called to express his outrage, saying he could not believe what Jason had done. My Aunt Susan, however, sent a message saying that while what they did was wrong, the baby was innocent and family should stick together. She actually wrote, "Blood has been spilled, so how can it be thrown away?" The fact that anyone could expect me to accept this situation made me question everything I thought I knew about family. After a month of pressure, I reluctantly agreed to meet at my parents' house. I told myself I was going to make it clear, once and for all, that I wanted nothing to do with Jason or Amanda, and then I would move on with my life. When I arrived, they were all there. My parents sitting nervously on the edge of their seats. Jason, his eyes red as if he had been crying. And Amanda, her pregnancy now visible, standing slightly behind him as if for protection. My mother started by saying how happy she was that we could all talk this out. My father nodded, adding that family was the most important thing and that we needed to find a way forward together. Jason stepped forward, repeating his apologies, saying he would spend the rest of his life making it up to me. But I noticed he kept his arm around Amanda, a gesture of possession that made my blood boil. Then Amanda spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "We never meant to hurt you, Gray. It just happened. We cannot help who we fall in love with." Those words broke something inside me that had been barely holding together. Just happened. As if their betrayal were a random act of nature, a hurricane or earthquake beyond their control. I exploded, releasing all the anger and pain I had been containing. I told them exactly what they had done to me, how they had destroyed not just my future, but my ability to trust. I told my parents that their willingness to sweep this under the rug for the sake of family harmony showed me that their love was conditional, dependent on me accepting unacceptable behavior. I told Jason that he was no longer my brother, in any way that mattered, and that I would never consider his child my family. My mother began to cry, and my father tried to calm me down, saying I was being too emotional. Jason looked stricken, and Amanda had tears streaming down her face. But I was beyond caring about their feelings. I stood up and delivered my final words to them. You all want me to accept this betrayal for the sake of family. Well, fuck off. All of you. I am done. I left the house with my mother calling after me, but I did not look back. That night I made the decision that would change everything. I would leave Chicago. Leave the memories. Leave the pain. I contacted a realtor the next morning and listed my house, not caring that the market was down and I would take a loss. I spoke to my company about transferring to the Seattle office, where they were expanding their operations. My boss, who knew some of what had happened, expedited the process. I blocked every contact from my family, including extended relatives who had taken their side. I sent a final email to my parents explaining that I needed time and space and asking them not to try to find me. I told them that while I might someday be able to have some kind of relationship with them again, I would never forgive Jason or Amanda, and any future contact would depend on their respecting that boundary. As my plane took off from Chicago 2 weeks later, I watched the city disappear beneath the clouds. I knew I would never return. That was the day I buried my past and began the journey of rebuilding my life from nothing. Seattle welcomed me with its misty mornings and vibrant tech scene. I found a small apartment near the water, minimally furnished, but with a view of Puget Sound that helped calm my mind. My new position at work required intense focus, which was exactly what I needed. The more I immersed myself in complex coding problems, the less time I had to dwell on what I had left behind. The first months were still difficult. I struggled with insomnia, often waking in the middle of the night, with my heart racing from nightmares about Amanda and Jason. I lost weight, my clothes hanging loosely on my frame. But slowly I began establishing routines that helped. Each morning I ran along the waterfront, pushing myself until my muscles burned and my lungs ached. The physical pain was a welcome distraction from the emotional one. I also found a support group for people dealing with betrayal trauma. Sitting in a circle with strangers who understood what I was going through without judgment helped me realize I was not alone. A therapist in the group recommended journaling, which I initially dismissed but eventually tried. Putting my thoughts on paper helped make sense of the chaos in my mind. 3 months after I left Chicago, I received a letter forwarded through my company. It was from my mother, who had somehow tracked down my work address. Inside was a birth announcement with a picture of a baby boy, Jason Jr. There was a note saying they hoped I would reconsider my position and come meet my nephew. They wanted me to be his godfather at the upcoming christening. I burned this letter too, watching the photograph curl and blacken in the flame. A month later, an old colleague from Chicago called to let me know that Jason and Amanda had gotten married in a small ceremony at my parents' house. He thought I should know, but assured me he had not given anyone my new contact information. I thanked him for his loyalty, but told him I did not want any more updates about my former family. That night I expected to feel the familiar surge of pain, but instead felt nothing. A numbness had replaced the sharp agony, and I was grateful for it. As Seattle's rainy winter gave way to spring, I joined a local mountain climbing club on a whim. I had never been particularly outdoorsy in Chicago, but something about scaling heights appealed to me now. There I met Michael, an environmental engineer who became my first real friend in my new life. He introduced me to his group of friends who spent weekends hiking the Cascades or kayaking in the San Juan Islands. These adventures reconnected me with something I had lost. In the vastness of Washington's wilderness, my problems seemed smaller. Standing on a summit looking out over endless forests and mountains, I could breathe again. The group never pried into my past, accepting me as I was in the present. But one night around a campfire after a challenging climb, I found myself sharing my story. No one offered platitudes or took sides. They just listened, and that was exactly what I needed. 6 months into my new life, I attended a tech conference where I met Sarah. She was presenting her work on artificial intelligence ethics, and her passion and intelligence impressed me immediately. When she approached me afterward to discuss some points I had raised during the Q&A, I felt a flutter of interest that both excited and terrified me. How could I trust anyone again? After what had happened, our first interactions were purely professional. We exchanged emails about industry developments and met occasionally for coffee to discuss work. I was careful to keep my distance emotionally, even as I found myself looking forward to our conversations. Sarah seemed to sense my hesitation and never pushed for more than I was ready to give. Gradually, over weeks of thoughtful conversations where she revealed her own past heartbreaks, I began to lower my guard. When I finally told her about Amanda and Jason, she did not offer empty comfort or tell me I should forgive for my own sake. Instead, she acknowledged how deeply I had been hurt and respected the boundaries I had set. Her understanding gave me permission to trust again, slowly and cautiously. About 18 months after I left Chicago, my mother showed up at my office unannounced. Seeing her standing there looking older than I remembered sent a shock through my system. My first instinct was to walk away, but something made me stop. We went to a nearby park where we could talk privately. The conversation was tense, full of long silences and careful words. She admitted that she and my father had handled everything wrong. They had been so focused on keeping the family together that they had minimized my pain. She said my father was still struggling to accept his part in driving me away, but that they both missed me terribly. When she mentioned Jason and Amanda, I stopped her. I made it clear that while I might be willing to have limited contact with my parents again, I would never have a relationship with my brother or his wife. She seemed to accept this, though I could see it pained her. After that meeting, I began speaking with my mother on the phone occasionally. Brief conversations about neutral topics, never mentioning Jason or his family. It was not forgiveness exactly, but a small reconnection that I found did not hurt as much as I had feared. Through this journey, I learned the value of setting boundaries and respecting myself enough to enforce them. I do not regret cutting ties with those who betrayed me. Some might call it unforgiving, but I see it as an act of self-preservation. I learned that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it simply means letting go of the anger, so it does not consume you while still maintaining the distance you need to heal. 2 years after the betrayal that shattered my old life, I had built a new one I was proud of. My career had advanced. I had made genuine friendships, and my relationship with Sarah had grown into something beautiful based on honesty and respect. We got engaged on a hiking trip to Mount Rainier, a moment untainted by the past. When I think about Jason and Amanda now, I feel a detached sort of sadness rather than the searing pain that once threatened to destroy me. I have no desire to ever see them again, but I no longer carry hatred for them. I am simply grateful. I found the courage to leave and discover what true happiness could be. Sometimes the people you thought were closest to you can hurt you the most deeply. But what matters is not what happens to you, but how you rise and rebuild. And I am proud that I did. Have you ever had to cut ties with family members who betrayed your trust? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength in the darkest times. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do.